What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Manny here. Welcome back to the channel. It's a beautiful morning here. Just got up 1 hour ago or something. I'm still a little bit tired because yesterday was a pretty exhausting outdoor climbing day, I have to say. We checked out a new crag in the garage area and it was pretty cool actually. Pretty nice climbing there. And I thought, hey, why not get up and keep criticizing this one video that we had to interrupt last time because of technical difficulties. Baby, please. But yeah, this is the video called Weight Loss, my take on it, 5 tips for becoming a greyhound. And yes, last time we already went over why I'm not a huge fan of nutritional science. We went over the salt topic, and we also talked a little bit about caloric deficit and why my modern opinion about this whole subject, weight loss and caloric deficit and fasting and stuff, is that it really more depends on eating frequency, and that eating frequency might be the key to understanding why certain people have so much trouble with losing weight while others seem to kind of stay thin naturally, because they have a much more healthy eating frequency, eating pattern. Whereas other people, really follow the snacking route, and, snacking might be one of the more detrimental things for human health, that we are subdued nowadays because we have fridges and all that kind of wonderful stuff and permanent access to food. Oh, the great, wonderful world that we live in. However, without too much rambling here, this time I downloaded the video, so we are not dependent on my super shitty internet that I have here anymore. So we should be able to keep criticizing this video in a normal way. So let's do this without further ado. Let's keep watching. I think we are just hitting the caloric deficit thing to the end, and then we're gonna start with the first actual tips.
Fat, but also protein. Your muscles will going to shrink, and everything will basically going to shrink because you're in a caloric deficit, okay?
Damn.
Your body utilizes a lot of stuff there, you're in a survival mechanism. If you want to lose weight on a sustainable basis, on long term, you want to lose fat and keep your muscles and become a fit, lean, sporty guy or girl or whatever.
How?
Then I would tell you the following. Tip number 1, you want to lose fat. So stop eating fat. Let me get closer to you for that one. Stop eating fat. It's actually pretty obvious.
The fat you eat is the fat you wear.
There are two very popular phrases in the weight loss scene, okay, nowadays. And the one is calories in, calories out. This is a perfect example for the calorie restriction type of weight loss, okay? You will get into the yo-yo effect. It's not going to work long term.
Probably.
And there is also the saying, the fat you eat, the fat you wear. And this is really true. I can only speak from my own experience and what I see around me and relatives who try to lose weight, and from good friends who try to lose weight, okay? The fat you eat is really the fat you wear. And when you cut out the fat of your diet, or let's say, obviously you can't eat zero fat, because you need to meet your essentials, and you have to comprehend that fat is basically part of any nutrient or any whole plant food you can get, okay? Even in a banana is probably 1 or 2% fat. And so you cannot eat zero fat, and it's also not advisable to do so because you need to meet your essentials. But just to make that clear, when I talk about stop eating fat, I mean eat fat in a 95-5 or 80-10-10 macro ratio style. Let 90% of your calories come from carbs, 5% from protein, 5% from fat. Okay, let's assume you need 2,500 calories a day because you're a quite active person. Then that would mean for a 5% ratio of your macros coming from fat, that would mean 875 calories per week from fat, okay? Let's double that if you're going to an 80-10-10 ratio. That's where you want to move, okay? Between a 95-5 and an 80-10-10 ratio with your fat. You want to be between 5 and 10%. So that means between 875 calories from fat and 1,750 calories from fat per week. You meet those needs by, I wrote that down, 1 avocado, 4 Brazil nuts, a tablespoon, 5 tablespoons of flax seeds, and 1 cup of walnut halves, okay? That's all fat you need for 1 week.
Really?
Actually I was quite surprised because that's quite much. I'm eating even a lower amount of fat per week, okay? And that also works. So yeah, that's what I mean with stop eating fat. Stop eating the extra fat. Stop eating the oils. Cut oils out of your diet, okay? You want to really keep your fat intake low. You don't want to eat more than you need.
Okay, so here I have to stop. Here I have to cut myself off finally. The fat you eat, the fat you wear. Let's talk about that for short. The keto crew is killing me for that, or will kill me for that, because what the keto crew is essentially saying is you have to eat fat because then you will become a fat burner and then you're gonna lose fat. Well, if you're still eating fat, then how does that add up? You know, if you're still eating more fat than you burn, you can still gain weight on a ketogenic diet or not. Apart from the fact that you need a extremely strong gallbladder to be able to absorb all these fats, you know, you need to have an extremely solid digestive tract to absorb these many amounts of calories of fat. And there's a couple of other points with that where it doesn't really add up. But however, in my experience, this is actually pretty true. The fat you eat is basically the fat you wear. I was eating very, very little fat back then when I was a vegan, because, I was a big believer in the high carb thing, and I always made the experience that when I mixed too much fats with too much carbs, especially, the plant fats, these nuts and oils and stuff like that. I was never a huge fan of oils since... Okay, to finish that sentence from before, it didn't really work out. Whenever I consumed a lot of fat on a vegan diet, whether that might be through oils or other whole plant fat foods like avocados or nuts and seeds, my performance in the gym would suffer, my performance in the crag would suffer, and I would also have these little skin issues. I was never really... Skin is one of my weaknesses when it comes to my genetics, okay? When something in my body chemically is not really balanced, is not right, then I feel it on my skin. I feel it with oily skin, with pimples and stuff like that. So skin is really my weakness there, and this is something that I can listen to very carefully and, assess whether I'm in good health or not, how my skin does. And whenever I would eat fats on a vegan diet, these plant fats, especially oils, then I would have problems with my skin, These oils, they made my skin oily and I would get more pimples. And I had pimples when I was a teenager. And still, when I went vegan, I still had these kind of strange pimples, they were coming out everywhere, especially on my back, interestingly. But very soon, after becoming a vegan, I decided, okay, oils are just simply not good for me. And since then, I basically stopped eating oils, and I'm still not eating any oils, apart from a few occasions, where I'm eating out, when I'm eating out, in my social circle or stuff like that. Because there you obviously can't prevent when someone, prepares some stuff in oil for you or stuff like that. I'm not the kind of guy that sits there and says then, hey, but don't use any oils, okay? No, I'm not. I'm just not doing that. I'm just not that hardcore anymore, However, I don't have any oil in my kitchen right now, okay? I'm not using any oil at all when I'm cooking my own food or when I'm preparing my own food. And that's basically the case since I was vegan, because I figured out that oils are simply not working very well with my body. So what I did was I was eating, very little other plant foods that had, fats in their natural composition, like avocados and nuts and seeds. However, when I would overdo it on these foods, I would again have the same symptoms as I would have had when I was eating a lot of oil, okay? Less performance in the gym, a little bit oily skin, these kind of strange things. And what I have to say in regards to that point is that I wasn't having access, because I was vegan, I wasn't having access anymore to animal fats. Like, raw butter, raw cream, raw egg yolks and stuff like that. I mean, you can also cook all that stuff, which is going to, decrease its value a little bit. Not as much, by the way, as I personally think, than if you would cook oils and even fry oils or something like that, okay? This is extremely, these plant fats, they are not very stable, especially these polyunsaturated fats, okay? These unsaturated these unsaturated chemical bonds, they tend to flip over when they are heated. This is why these oils are often getting rancid, and if you heat them, then they're becoming trans fats and stuff like that. I can't get into the chemical details here a lot because, quite frankly, I'm not an expert in it. I can't tell you what's exactly going on there. I just know that, you know, these hardened plant fats like margarine and stuff like that, this is really, really freaking unhealthy stuff, okay? And I'm pretty sure that, you know, all these frying oils and all that kind of stuff, it's pretty damn unhealthy. Yeah, so that's basically the reason why I believe that still, if you can get them in a raw state, your fats, that's going to be probably less detrimental than if you even heat them and even fry them and stuff like that. So anyway, I wasn't having access to animal fats. Now that I have access to these animal fats, I figured out that, wow, you know, all these problems that I had on my, you know, plant fats don't really occur when I have animal fats. And I've made some pretty severe experiments with that already, with raw butter, with raw cream and all that stuff, you know, consuming quite a lot of calories from these animal fats. Next day on the crag, didn't really notice any, you know, detrimental effects. My skin is clearer and more perfect than it was ever before, you know. When I can't think of any point in time when my skin was as clear as it is now, okay? Back in my teens, again, I was having acne and all that kind of stuff. And before that, yeah, this is, you know, kind of out of my remembering range, so I don't really know. Probably when I was a child, I had pretty clear skin as well, but, you know, who knows? Now I can say definitely that my skin is better than ever before. You know, it's really really clear, not a lot of pimples at all. And also my back, you know, especially my back, it's just smooth. It just seems to work out. Another thing that is quite interesting is that I became more resistant to the sun, you know. I feel that especially now during this spring, yesterday we had a lot of sun exposure at this crag. It was quite high up. And I was enjoying it, you know, was climbing without shirt and still no sunburn whatsoever, usually coming from winter, you know, when I was very pale. The first sun exposure would be a guaranteed sunburn, you know, sunburn, sunbrand. Damn, the German language is kicking through. But anyway, these are the effects that I'm noticing, you know, now that I'm eating more plant fats. And again, you know, regarding the 80-10-10 thing, the 95-5 thing, I was pretty much 95-5 back then. And when we even take into account that a lot of these nutrients that you get from these nuts and seeds, you know, you can't even really take up if you don't have a super solid digestive tract that is going to break that stuff down. Because all that stuff has, you know, these anti-nutrients that bind to minerals, you know, that make it harder for their protein to be digested and all that kind of stuff. If we take that into account as well, I was eating very little fat back then, and you can see it. You know, I was very chiseled. If you take a look at my old training videos, I was having very little, you know, a very little skin layer on my muscles. I was just super lean back then. And also during my trips to Ciurana, then when I got down to like 61 kilograms or something, and damn, I was super lean, okay? And this is what happens if you're following this high carb vegan thing. You're eating only rice and, you know, vegetables, potatoes and vegetables and stuff like that. Now, the vegans are gonna say, yeah, why didn't you eat more fats? You know, you would have been so much healthier. Yeah, I'm not sure about that, you know. If I get these, you know, kind of symptoms from eating all these plant, you know, fats, then for me, I have to conclude that a higher carb vegan diet was what was working kind of in the vegan realm. This was what was working the best for me, okay? Again, now that I have access to these animal fats, I'm not really so sure about 80-10-10 anymore. You know, I'm pretty sure that I'm eating a lot more fat now that I am on this other diet, and I don't have any detrimental effects from that at all, apart from the fact that I am simply gaining weight, because again, the fat you eat is really the fat you wear. You know, when you eat fat, you gotta burn that fat later on if you want it to be gone again. So yeah, if you want to lose fat, yeah, I would still recommend you simply don't eat fat, okay? If you want to lose fat, keep your insulin low, fast, Let your body have access to your body fat and let it burn off, simply burn it off. But yet again, we could get into a discussion whether it is even healthy to be super lean, okay? And this is actually a very important point that I want to hit in the context with this video at the end of this critiquing video. And I think these were pretty much oil the points that I wanted to hit with the critique of this point. Just one more word about this whole, chronometer thing. It's so funny that all these vegans are these chronometer warriors, I don't do that at all anymore. And it's so funny when you take a look at chronometer, the most popular foods, the most popular 20 foods, it's all vegan stuff, I will try to show this here to you. It's so funny. Chronometer is really a vegan domain, okay? It's used by vegans a lot because they want to see if they're getting all their vitamins and minerals and all that kind of stuff. And taking not into consideration that they don't even take all that up, when they are eating all these plants. Because, again, a lot of them are suffering from a really alkaline digestive environment, that's not good for your digestion at all. You're not taking a lot of these minerals up at all because of, anti-nutrients and, again, weak, acidity. And just in general, how they determine the caloric content of a food, with this bomb calorimeter method. They simply throw it into a fire, burn it, and then they see how much water they can heat with that energy, and that determines how much calories it is in that food. That's not how our body works. You don't even take up all the calories that you consume, okay? Something's coming out at the back end as well. And it greatly depends on what you're eating, how much of it comes back out again. If you're eating a lot of nuts, for example, I would be surprised if you're even getting 60, 70% of the calories that these nuts have, because a lot of it is coming out again undigested, okay? Anyway, so much on all these points. I would say let's keep watching.
So tip number 2. Stop eating animal products.
Stop eating animal
products. This one is actually included already in tip number 1, because as you probably know, animal products are quite high in fat. Once you want to
stop, not necessarily, okay? Not necessarily. I think I'm gonna mention it here as well, that there is low-fat milk and, chicken breast, which is obviously very low in fat. But there's also, very natural, cuts of meat and stuff, which are very low in fat. And I want to hit this point actually here really shortly. It's really funny when you watch vegans talking about meat and talking about animal products. You can see this here on YouTube very well. Then they throw all of this into one big thing, animal products, and throw it under the bus, okay? They don't acknowledge the fact that there are actually different animal products. There are so many different foods from the animal kingdom. And even if you take one animal, okay, then there are so many different cuts, and then there are organ meats and certain organs, and all these things, interact slightly differently with our body. It's actually funny now that I'm having a little bit of more insight into the other side, essentially. I more see plant foods as, one thing that you could throw. I don't want to throw them under the bus because that would be stupid as well, okay? But for example, potatoes, rice, polenta, and all this kind of stuff is essentially one thing, namely starch, okay? To your body, this is essentially starch and a little bit of fiber. So this is actually one thing that you could throw under the bus, okay? Then we have fruit. Essentially all fruits have a lot of sugar and a lot of water and a lot of some vitamins. Yeah, so that's essentially fruit. So really, for vegans to claim that all animal products are the same, and are all bad and should be all thrown under the bus is really, really, that's very short-sighted, or I don't know how I should call it. You have to broaden your horizon here a little bit. This is a mistake that a lot of vegans do, and I did myself, okay? I thought, okay, it's an animal product, it's bad for my health. throw it under the bus. Different animal products have very different effects on the body, and it also matters whether you cook them or not, you know. So there's a lot of options here, really. However, I just don't want to ramble too long about this point. Let's keep watching.
Your fat intake, you basically have to cut out animal products, all right? But there is all kinds of crazy stuff. I mean, there is low-fat milk and chicken breast, which is quite lean. But that's all bullshit, okay? I mean, animal products are going to keep you bloated. They're going to let you blow up quite fast.
Bloated is really the wrong word, because bloating, you know, in a digestive sense of, in a digestive sense, then animal products are actually very, very non-bloating, okay? If you want to live your life in flat stomach nation, then you better go for the animal products range of foods than to the vegan foods, you know. When it comes to bloating and digestive things, then I can definitely point more to the vegan diet, okay, when it comes to these issues. But anyway.
Okay, they will make you heavy. I don't know exactly how that works. As I said, that's something for part 2, but it is like that. I mean, you cannot deny that, all right? Look at those guys with the high animal product consumption, and look at those lean greyhounds which are vegan and basically fit and healthy. Yeah. All right, so tip number.
However, I am in a sense correct here, because I was telling that animal products are very anabolic and, you know, will make you gain weight. And this is yet again very, very true, okay? The question really is whether this means that animal products are necessarily bad for you just because they have this effect on the body. You know, kind of get what I'm saying here? Just because something makes you gain weight doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. And you can also gain weight in different ways, okay? You can be fat in a very unhealthy way, and you can have some, you know, good, juicy amount of weight to you, which doesn't necessarily mean that you're unhealthy, you know, carrying that weight. I am pretty sure that I'm not very unhealthy at this point in time, and I carry a lot more weight than I did back then, okay? But I'm a lot more juicy, I feel a lot more, you know, stable, I feel a lot more grounded, I'm much more resistant to heat, just as well as cold, just as well as the sun, and stuff like that. So, you know, it's not that black and white. Just because you're lean doesn't necessarily mean that's good for you. You can be lean and very healthy though, but you can also be a little bit, you know, more heavy and still very healthy. So your body can exist in these different modes. And, you know, especially when we talk about the female gender, and I've talked about that before, things like fasting, things like, you know, a vegan diet, a high carb vegan diet, which gets you very lean, I don't think that these are very good for females at all anymore, okay? Because female bodies are meant to have this kind of juicy layer of subcutaneous fat, you know, upon them. It also makes them very attractive, you know. When you want to keep up these attractive tissues, then you gotta probably consume some of that stuff from time to time, you know, these more anabolic foods, because otherwise you're simply gonna shred down, and I'm sorry, but this is just not how a healthy female body should look like. At least it's my humble opinion. You know, I don't want to offend anyone here, of course. Actually, I don't really care. If you're offended by that, then be offended. I'm not so, you know, afraid of triggering people anymore. But anyway, let's keep watching.
Number 3, stay carved up.
Stay carved up.
I mean, this is actually also a very important one. Until now, I just told you what to basically leave out of your diet, okay? What you have to leave out of your lifestyle. Now it's going to get more into the direction what you should incorporate into your life, okay? And these are definitely the carbs, okay? The carbohydrates. The carbohydrates will help you to feel satisfied, and they will give you the energy your brain and your body needs for exercise and staying focused, staying sharp-minded, all right? That's what the carbs are going to do, the glucose, okay? I mean, every cell of your body drives from glucose, right? Drives from glucose. This is the energy source which we are most adapted to, all right? And the brain, for example, can almost only utilize glucose, okay, for energy production. And it takes quite a lot of glucose. I think 30% of your daily energy needs or so is occupied by the brain, actually. But anyways, as I told you before in the fat chapter, keep the carbs high. I say 80-10-10 to 95-5. As you can see, 80% or even 90. I mean, Actually, in my case, I'm pretty sure I'm consuming 90% of my calories from carbs, okay? That's quite much.
Yeah,
and especially in today's time where everybody thinks that carbs make you fat, I get comments on a daily basis where people tell me, man, how can you be so lean? You're eating so much carbs. I mean, don't you know that carbs make you fat? Carbs don't make you fat, all right? Keep that in mind. You have to be carved up. See through the bullshit and stay carved up. Get the fat down, get the carbs up. Easy as that. Okay, tip number 4.
Okay, freaking expert. I have to stop you here again. Stay carved up. Yeah, I mean, obviously you gotta get your calories from somewhere. You know, when you can't really eat, plant fats because these are going to give you some issues, then you gotta get your calories from somewhere. And that's usually the carbohydrates for most of the whole food plant-based vegans out there, okay? I cannot really disagree with him here because it worked out just so well for me, okay? I was eating a very high carb diet and I was lean as frick. So it was only, natural for me to recommend to people, if you want to get lean as well, then simply, just cut the fat down, eat very little fat and eat very high carb. However, nowadays I would add a couple of caveats to that. First of all, I am a pretty hardcore athlete, okay? And I was already a pretty hardcore athlete back then. So it seems to work really, really well if you're an athlete to get to smash the carbs in, okay? Because you're also burning carbs all the time. And especially with climbing, I've talked about that as well. We are a lot of in the anaerobic mode there, which is very, carb burning. We are not very aerobic, which would be more fat burning. If you're an athlete like that, then you're gonna burn all these carbs off, and then also they are not gonna give you so many issues. We have to realize that for a lot of sedentary people, I think living the lifestyle that I had with all these carbs, I'm not sure if they would have been so lean as I was, okay? All these carbs, even if you can digest them really well still, because you still have a quite young digestive system and you're still fit, you can handle them quite well, they still gonna have detrimental effects on your, system in general, on the inner things of your body. We see with a lot of high carb people, they have problems with teeth, okay, because these cavities, they develop because of crazy blood sugar swings. And we see this especially with fruits. We see this especially with people who are on a very high fruit diet. Permanently this sugar roller coaster, that's gonna, hurt your teeth with time from the inside, okay? This is just another point that we could get into, how teeth decay and stuff like that is actually happening. This is actually a process that's happening from the inside because your body is grabbing onto calcium because it wants to buffer the osmotic swings of your blood, essentially. Your body wants to keep your blood in a very tight, operating window, because your blood carries out one of the most important functions, namely carrying oxygen, okay, to your cells. And in order to do that, it has to have a very specific pH, it has to have very specific osmotic relationships with the other tissues in your body. And if you disrupt that permanently by, crazy blood sugar swings, then you're gonna see this, you're gonna see your body grabbing onto calcium from time to time to buffer that stuff out. But anyway, that's another subject. I don't want to even get into that too much here. What I want to say is, also back then, myself, I was suffering from these, these high carb meals as well. I could feel it during my sleep. I was always having this strange, taste in my mouth in the night. And I had much more like dandruff and this kind of, again, skin issues, because skin is my weakness apparently when it comes to all these things. And this is another thing, these fungi, candida and stuff like that. A lot of people are reporting problems with that when it comes to really high carb diets. Which only makes sense because fungi like candida and stuff feed really, really well on carbs, okay? So the carb thing really comes with these caveats. I think if you're an athlete and you can burn all these carbs off kind of efficiently and, you know, not turn them into fat and store them again and stuff like that, which is very unlikely if you're an athlete, in my opinion anyway. But yeah, then a high carb diet will really work, especially a high carb vegan diet, to keep you shredded as hell, keeps you lean as well. Whether that's a good thing or not, again, we're gonna talk about this in the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. Is there any other points that I have to add here? I said that carbs are the energy source that we are most adapted to. Probably not. I mean, it works quite well, okay, nowadays, because we have access to grains and fruits, and because we're importing a shit ton of bananas to a place like Europe where no bananas grow. I mean, show me the banana tree in in Austria, the banana tree that's carrying ripe bananas, at least. I mean, there are some banana trees around there in the meantime because it's getting warmer and warmer. However, they do not carry bananas. So if we wouldn't import all that fruit, we wouldn't have all that fruit here around, okay? And if we wouldn't have access to all these grains, which we only have since like 10,000 years ago, since the agricultural revolution, before that, how in the hell were we adapted to, carbs? There were no carbs around here, and not even on the equator, where people still live somewhere in primitive tribes and where they have access to a lot of fruits in the rainforest and stuff like that. You will see them much more, going for the little monkey in the trees and stuff instead of all the fruit abundance that is there. And this is another thing, wild fruits contain a lot less sugar actually, and a lot more, other stuff, minerals and vitamins and all that kind of stuff, a lot less sugar. So what we have domesticated nowadays as fruits is very far from nature already, just like it is with the animals that we domesticate nowadays, which is another issue we could get into. But yeah, all very interesting stuff. What I want to say is we were probably not adapted to carbs back then, and we probably still are not. We can survive quite well on carbs, obviously, because otherwise I would be dead now. However, are we most adapted to that? I would have to argue probably we are more adapted to fat and protein, and especially animal fats and protein up here in this geographical entity, at least, where we have winter, okay, where we have 6 months of the year where there is no carbs around at all that we can digest, all right? And again, the body has perfect mechanisms to create carbohydrates out of protein, for example. So, with very, little eating frequency and all that kind of stuff, we have to take a look at that. We can actually create our own carbs. That's what I want to say here. So again, I was very carb fixated back then, which is what I've talked about in my first vegan critique video already. But if I would have to choose what I would want in a survival situation, now I would much more choose a great mix of fat and protein, ideally animal fat and animal protein, because I can digest it very, very well. I can assimilate that very well, and it would allow me to make my body go much longer and go, maybe survive the situation. Whereas a carb meal just simply is once gonna spike my blood sugar, and then blood sugar is going downhill again, and then you're gonna get into an unnecessary carb roller coaster. Enough rambling. Let's keep listening.
Actually, also a pretty obvious one. Get outside, get the oxygen in, and do some sports. I mean, move your body. It's not much is required, okay? Maybe half an hour per day or something like that. But you have to do something, and something is better than nothing. You need to get out into the fresh air, get oxygenized. I mean,
that's very true.
That's actually something for part 2 now. But you need much oxygen to burn a molecule of fat. Fat contains quite low oxygenized carbon atoms, okay, and a lot of them, much more than one sugar molecule, for example, okay. A glucose molecule contains 6 carbon atoms, I think, and the fat molecule can contain up to, 15 or 16. Actually, it's always even numbers, as I remember. but yeah, it can contain up to 20 carbon atoms, okay? And every single one of these carbon atoms has to be oxygenized, has to be, what is the word? Oxidated,
Yes,
okay?
yes, very true.
And this can only happen when you get out in the fresh air and do some endurance sports. Breathe a lot, okay? Get oxygenized. Get that oxygen into your body so that the fat can start to burn, all right? You want to turn your whole metabolism from a fat storer into a fat burner. And you can do that by simply cutting the fat out of your diet or keeping it low, keeping it between 5 and 10%, as we said before, and getting the oxygen in so that you're permanently oxygenized and you are burning a little bit of fat all the time, okay? And this is going to turn slowly but surely your body from a fat storer, which you are telling him by eating fat, okay? But because, I mean, you have to keep in mind your body cannot do anything else with fat when you eat it than store it. Okay, fat always gets firstly stored and then burned afterwards. So by shutting down the fat consumption, you will continue to burn fat, but you will not gain any fat anymore, okay? Now everybody will say, oh, but the carbs can be turned to fat as well, and when you eat so much carbs, you're going to be fat as well, blah, blah, blah.
They can.
Yes, theoretically that can happen, but practically, from real life experience, this does not occur. I mean, I have seen it 1,000 times, it just doesn't occur. But anyway, that's something for part 2. Now we proceed to tip 5.
Okay, I just want to say I'm very correct here. The thing that I've talked about before, you know, about the aerobic mode, this is probably the best mode to be in if you want to lose weight, okay? Keep your insulin low via, you know, little eating frequency, low eating frequency, okay, is the first requirement. Cut out the snacking. Snacking is going to be extremely detrimental to your weight loss. And then aerobic exercise, getting the oxygen in, you know, making exercise, but keeping your body in the aerobic mode, not like, you know, climbing, which is very anaerobic, you know. You can also climb very, very easy routes that are very easy for you, that are not going to kick you out of the aerobic mode. Then again, this is going to be a good method, for example. But apart from that, things like cycling, things like running, things like, you know, swimming, climbing, very soft climbing routes, you know, traversing in your climbing gym or stuff like that. Climbing gym is not ideal in a sense for that anyway, because there is no fresh air really in climbing gym, just this chalky, you know, dusty air around all the time, which is not very healthy, I think. But get out, you know, get out in the sunshine, fresh air, do your endurance stuff. This is going to get the oxygen in, which is in general a very healthy thing to have, you know, a very oxygenized body. We can nowadays point very easily to diseases that occur in body parts which are not very well oxygenized, you know, and this is also a problem with vascularization. People are losing the oxygen supply to certain parts of their body, and then problems emerge. So having oxygen in your body to a certain degree is healthy. I think it's not wrong to say that. And this is all the stuff that, for example, this Wim Hof thing is based on principally, I think, you know. Taking deep breaths and, you know, getting the oxygen into all parts of your body. We don't even realize how sometimes we are, you know, unoxygenized essentially. You know, just the fact that I'm sitting here and not really breathing deeply, strange, you know, posture, all that kind of stuff. You know, get out, do your endurance sports, get the oxygen in. That's really, really correct here, actually. Very correct.
Last one for this video.
What's the last?
Not so important, but actually important as well for weight loss. Drink a lot of water. Stay hydrated. Because when you start burning your fat tissue, you will also release a lot of toxic metabolites into your system, all right? And your body needs to get rid of that. You need the water to excrete those metabolites, to excrete those toxins and stuff that you accumulated during all the years of eating junk. You can support your body by drinking a lot of water, all right? Because then the body has an easier way to excrete all that stuff. I mean, your body can basically detox toxic substances via 3 mechanisms, okay? You can either excrete it directly through the sweat or urine or breathe it out or whatever. You can process it into your body and then excrete it. And this is already causing, of course, a little bit of damage into your body, because processing toxic metabolites is not so advantageous in any case. And then there is also the third option, that the body just keeps the toxins into metabolically inactive tissue, okay? And fat stores is actually quite inactive. It's quite inactive tissue. This becomes very practical for your body to just store every chunk it has in your fat tissue.
Okay.
Okay, that's good for now, but once
I just have a couple of things to add here. Storing, your body storing toxins in your fat tissue. Nowadays, I would say that a lot of these toxins, that we're talking about here are actually very lipophilic, or they are more fat soluble than water soluble, essentially. If toxins are water soluble, it is going to be pretty easy to, simply piss them out. However, most of these toxins that are really doing damage to our body and stuff like that, and that we are exposed to also in a relevant amount, I would say, are actually fat soluble. And this is why, these toxins tend to be stored in fat tissue. But subcutaneous fat tissue, which is what you're losing when you, go on a weight loss journey, so to say, is not the only fat tissue in your body. We've also got our brain and central nervous system, and any nerve essentially in your body. Nerves are very, very fatty, organs. And we've got also bone marrow, quite a lot actually. This is also a very, very fatty organ. So if you're exposed to these, lipophilic toxins all the time, then you can be sure that not only in your subcutaneous fatty tissue, which is what you're going to lose when you lose weight, but also in your bone marrow and in your brain and in your central nervous system and stuff like that, there are going to be like accumulations of this kind of substance. A perfect example for that is THC, for example, the active compound in cannabis. So this is why THC is, detectable in the body so long after, continuous exposure. I think like even 1 month after it or stuff like that, because this substance is very lipophilic, and it's going to, hold on to your fatty tissues in your body, and is going to be released over time, re-released over time in your system, when this fat, so to say, turns over, when it turns over metabolically, so to say, So this is, yet again, another thing with detox, when you want to call it like that. Having a good amount of subcutaneous fatty tissue can actually help you in some sort of way to prevent intoxications with certain chemicals, because then this chemical gets diluted in that kind of tissue rather than in your central nervous system and in your bone marrow, which are actually, metabolically quite active tissues, unlike the subcutaneous fatty tissue, which is metabolically quite inactive. So all of these are fatty tissues. Some of them are active, some of them are inactive. So you basically want to keep these bad compounds out of the active tissues, That's just a couple of points that I wanted to add here, and in a sense with detox, these raw animal fats, for example, they tend to, give you also this kind of good fat, this good buffer, this good grounding buffer to, buffer off these exposures to certain chemicals or whatnot. It's really hard to describe, but in a sense, I would argue nowadays that raw animal fat is actually more important when it comes to detox compared to, just drinking water, okay? Drinking water is not going to do a lot for your detox. It's just going to make you piss a lot of water, essentially. So much for that. Let's keep watching.
You're starting to lose weight. Once you're starting to burn this fat tissue off, you're going, of course, to release those toxins again into your system, into your metabolism. And this is why you should drink a lot, in my opinion, because then you will have an easier time to excrete those toxins, okay, from your body. But anyway, you should be hydrated anyways, okay? Hydration is very important.
Yes. But I already talked about that. I think that water, just drinking pure water, doesn't really hydrate you a lot, okay? Hydration and lubrication comes actually with healthy fats, you know, fats that are integrated in your body in a healthy way, that your body doesn't have to struggle with, you know, because they are kind of foreign to it, like all these plant oils and stuff, which are kind of hardly integratable, I would say, into your body. And yeah, this is at least my experience, you know, with plant. Since I am on this diet, I rarely drink pure water, okay? It's just maybe 3 sips a day or something that I even get thirsty because everything I eat just contains a lot of water naturally, and I don't have to add it separately in. So this is just something. And now I think I'm just simply repeating the points over. So we are pretty much finished with the video, which makes me want to hit the last very important point that or the issue, I should say, that I have with this video. And that is the fact that I displayed the fact that you can be a greyhound, or that being a greyhound in general is something that you should strive for, okay? Because everybody should be super lean and everybody should be fit and lean and shredded, you know, very little fat on them, as I had back then. This is nonsense, okay? I think that the healthiest state of your body actually has a bit more fat on you. And you can be fat in different ways nowadays. If you're smashing in, like, you know, chips and crisps and all that kind of stuff in a snacking way, you're gonna put on a lot of fat really quickly, and it's gonna be, you know, all of these oils and these rancid fats. We are not converting a lot of fat in our body into what we want as fat on our body, okay? We are pretty much incorporating directly the fats that we eat. So this is why, you know, just with pigs, you can pretty much reconstruct what these animals ate, depending, you know, when you take a look at their fat tissue. That's why you let pigs graze in, like the Iberian pig, for example. You let them graze in these hazelnut forests or whatever, and then they get all these healthy fats in. And then these fats are going to go into their bacon, and, you know, then everybody's happy because this bacon is of such high quality, okay? It's pretty much the same with us. We are pretty much directly incorporating the fats that we eat. And this is why nowadays you can be fat in very different ways depending on which processed junk you eat, okay? If you're eating chips and crisps all the time, you're gonna incorporate that, and that's pretty much surely is not going to be as healthy as if you would only incorporate raw fats, you know, from whole plant foods like nuts, avocados, and seeds and stuff like that if you want, but also from raw animal sources, you know. They are just simply going to work very well with your body. I didn't have any detrimental effects whatsoever from them, okay? And now I already hear all the vegans scream, but the saturated fatty acids and the cholesterol and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, according to nutritional science, yes, I have to agree with you, okay? But the thing is, I'm not on board with that anymore. Sorry, I'm not on board with that anymore. I've made a big fat disclaimer in front of this video, just like with all the other vegan critique videos, that I'm not a health expert, I'm not a doctor. Okay, I'm just merely listening to my own observations and the things that I observe at my body and also on the body on different other people, you know. So yeah, I'm not on board with the also evil, you know, saturated fatty acids and also evil cholesterol anymore. Especially not when we're talking about these things in a raw state, okay? So this is something that I wanted to get across, okay? When you want to have this kind of juicy, you know, the juicy look, the crispy look, you know, the tight, sexy look, you know? You gotta have a little bit of that healthy fatty tissue onto your body, you know, this kind of completely unnaturally shredded things, you know, that we see nowadays because of this bodybuilding hype and all that kind of stuff. It's really unnatural, and I think that's really unhealthy as well, and especially for females. So the 5 girls that are watching here, you know, keep a little bit of healthy fat on you. It looks pretty sexy, and, you know, it's just a healthy thing to have, I think. Enough said, I think. Another video critiqued, nice. I think next time we are going to go a little bit more into the ethics or not. The next thing that we are going to critique is going to be a more ethic-focused video. That should be pretty interesting. However, if you got something from this video, please leave a like as usual. Leave also your opinion. You know, I know that a lot of people are very excited, very passionate about this kind of topic. So don't spare me your opinion. I can take it. Even if you're triggered, I can take it. Post it down below. That would be wonderful. I always appreciate it. And until then, I think I'm gonna go outside now and enjoy the sun a little bit. See you in the next video very soon. Bye. Stay strong.